Okay, well, let's kick things off. Welcome again, and thanks for joining us. I'm Jennifer. I'm Dr. Jennifer Jaros Rapp, and I'm the Vice President of Pathways and Partnerships with CORD. You may not be familiar with CORD. CORD stands for the Center for Occupational Research and Development, and CORD is a national nonprofit. We've been around for 45 years doing work in the career pathways design and workforce development for STEM and technical fields mostly. A key component of CORD's work is helping educators and employers collaborate to build their community's talent pipeline. And that's why we're here today. Today's conversation is the second in the series of webinars focused on sharing insights and actionable strategies for building career pathways that align with industry needs and support our learners. We are happy today to have a panel with us. Our topic of focus is going to be employer engagement today. We're excited to have several distinguished educators and employers here to share how they leverage each other's expertise to create dynamic, innovative career pathways. So let's get started. As I mentioned, a little background on CORD. CORD is the national nonprofit that has worked with all 50 states over the past 4 decades. 45 years we've been here. And we continually draw from experience based on the best practices from previous projects that have been conducted at the federal, state, and local levels. Our mission focuses on the 3 things that you see here. We really help educators, help learners of all ages realize success in the classroom and in the path of their choice. This year, as you see on the slide, we're celebrating our 45th anniversary of leading projects and networks across the country. So we're excited to be here and still doing the work that we've done for so long. Also, CORD has established NCPN. Many of you may have heard of NCPN, but may not have realized that CORD and NCPN are actually connected. CORD established NCPN back in 1991. And for 33 years, this network has been offering conferences, workshops, and publications to facilitate the exchange of promising practices and innovations. And you can see on the slide in front of you that we're dedicated to strengthening the education to careers pipeline through various professional development opportunities. One that you may be familiar with is NCPN Connect. NCPN's annual conference for educators, employers, and workforce development leaders and community partners will be in Austin this year, February 26th through the 28th of 2025. And at that conference, we'll all come together to network, learn from each other about how to build career pathways that foster individual economic success, business growth, and community vibrancy. So we're excited to be announcing that upcoming conference and hope that you'll all be able to join us there. Okay, over the past 10 years, CORD has led numerous technical assistance projects at the national level for the Department of Education and the National Science Foundation to test practices supporting rapidly changing workforce demands. And we know we are in a time in our world where things are changing very quickly in terms of the workforce. 3 components have proven essential for colleges in making systematic change to keep up with those changes. Those 3 actually 4 can be seen up here on the screen. First and foremost, fostering an ecosystem that can support you in fostering these pathways. But in order to do that, we must engage employers to identify the talent needs and strategies. And we also must use that employer input in a way that we design pathways built on industry-validated credentials and incorporate those into our college curriculum and high school curriculum and across the education spectrum. We must also understand a learner's needs and clear any hurdles preventing them from progressing seamlessly along the pathway. So our framework that we have developed as a result of this work over several decades features all of these components so that in the end, we can build pathways that are industry informed and supported by an ecosystem with a continuous feedback loop. It places the evolving skill and personal support needs of a community's learners front and center, and it leverages the unique strength of partnerships across the community. This NCPN Connected webinar series is an opportunity to learn more about this and hear directly from practitioners in the field about how they are engaging in the different components of the framework at their colleges or institutions that they're connected to. So today's focus is going to be on strategic employer engagement. This is, as defined on the screen, through an industry-led model that leads workforce intelligence at a depth and with a frequency to facilitate continuous program improvement and innovation. I'm excited to share with you today a panel that is really, I think, going to bring some innovative ideas and thoughts on this idea of employer engagement. But before we do, let's take a little poll of those who are in the room with us today. Liz, if you'll launch that poll for us. Just want to get a sense of where you are in terms of employer engagement. If you joined us 2 weeks ago in our first webinar of the series, you may have seen a poll question similar to this. So today we're focusing again on the employer engagement piece, and we wanted to just highlight this question again as part of the webinar. Okay. Like we've got a good number of people answering the poll. Leave it open for just a minute. Some of you have already feel like you've got employer engagement, good strategies in place. Some make steady progress. And then we have some who have started, but still feel like you're in the early stages of that. So, all right. Thank you, Liz. Maybe we can just show those results. Okay. Thank you. So let's jump into the panel. That's why we're all here. So our panel today, let's see, am I still sharing? Our panel today is going to be a conversation with educators and their employer partners about strategies for leveraging employer and faculty expertise to drive innovation and make sure that our students are workforce ready. I will be facilitating the panel for all of you today, and we have two educators with us, Marcy Gale from Virginia, Central Virginia, and Justin Starr from the Community College of Allegheny County in Pennsylvania. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can see those educators as well as their industry partners, and we'll do a little introduction once we have those all on, that have them all on screen. So go. Perfect. We made it. We're all here. Thank you, everyone. Before we jump into the questions, I just want to do a very brief introduction of each of our panelists and say a big thank you to everyone that is here with us today. We know everyone is so busy anymore, and both educators and employers, we really appreciate you coming here to join us today. As I mentioned, we have two educators. First, I'd like to introduce Marcy Gale. Marcy, if you'll just wave to everyone. There we go. Marcy is the mechatronics program head and faculty, as I mentioned, at Central Virginia Community College. And she has with her here today two industry partners from the same company. We have Rob, and Rob, I'm going to ask you to pronounce your last name because I didn't ask you that yesterday. Rob. And then we also have Steve Woodall.
It's a Rob Garangelli and Steve Woodall.
There we go. Steve Woodall. Thank you, Rob and Steve.
Yes.
And they are from MB Handy Company. Rob is a service manager and Steve is a technical supervisor, leader, and trainer. So we're looking forward to hearing what they have to say today. We also have with us Justin Starr, and Justin is from the Community College of Allegheny County in Pennsylvania. He is an endowed professor of advanced technology. So we'll hear a little bit more about that. And Justin has his industry partner with us here today, and that's Rachel Mauer. She is the president of German American Chamber of Commerce, the Pittsburgh chapter. So we'll get to hear a little bit more about that. Thank you all. So let's start out by having our educators talk a little bit about their partnership. How long has it been? How long have you had it in place? How did it get started? Is there a focus behind the partnership? Those kinds of things. So give us a little bit of background on each of your partnerships. And let's start with you, Marcy, since you're first on my screen.
Sure thing. So I am very grateful for all of my industry partners. And of course, some industry partners are more special than other industry partners. And the ones that I can call on to participate in extracurricular activities like this are absolutely the best. So how did my partnership with NB Handy start? Most of my industry partnerships started because I kind of pushed my foot in the door and said, "Hey, here I am. Can you show me your stuff?" And I think I met Rob when I went over to Rob, what do you call those events that you have, your showcase events?
Yes, those are industry shows. We have also engineer events where engineers come in and kind of see how things are made and the parts are applied to the schematics and the diagrams that they put together.
So they were having one of these and they had a ton of their specialty. They make specialty machinery. They had a ton of it set up and running so you could walk through. And I just went over there and went through everything and got a few minutes to speak with Rob and hit it off immediately and invited him to come to my classroom. And he and Steve came and with a wonderful presentation. They've been a couple of times. And one way to get your foot in the door with an industry partner is to always ask your students, where do you work? If you're already working somewhere in the industry, where do you work? And can you introduce me to your management? Can you set up a tour for me? And that's basically how we got started.
Great. Thank you, Marcy. Justin, how about you? Tell us a little bit about your partnership with Rachel.
It's tough to sum it up because there's so much going on. Rachel is a force not only at CCAC, but in the Pittsburgh region. So back in, I think, 2018, we started working with Rachel on a mechatronics apprenticeship program. And I think if you guys don't have a German American Chamber of Commerce, that name is a little bit like, what do you take out of that? Rachel represents so many companies in the Pittsburgh area who have mechatronics needs in the workforce. So rather than us working with each company one by one, when we work with Rachel, we're effectively working with 15 companies at once. And one of her missions, among many, is to bring aspects of the German style dual system where students get apprenticeship training and they work for a company all at the same time to the United States. And so we've been very lucky to work with her on that journey. And the results are really interesting, right? So, when I first met Rachel, I thought this is great. Rachel's going to be a great way for me to get more students into my program. And hands down has done that. I think we have 3 current cohorts of Rachel students running with us, apprenticeship students. It's tripled the size of our mechatronics program. But for me, almost more importantly, is Rachel's constant engagement with employers has caused us to revise and change our curriculum much more quickly than we would have otherwise to make us responsive to industry needs. So with Rachel, we updated our mechatronics curriculum. We got rid of some early introductory certifications. If you Google CCAC in the news recently, you'll see we launched an electric vehicle apprenticeship program. We never would have done that on our own. It really took Rachel and an organization like hers to drive us to do that quickly and really embrace innovation. So I'm like, that's a quick Cliff Notes summary. Rachel can talk much more about it, but it's really a partnership that's been great for both of us. It's improved our curriculum. It's forced us to think about things in some new ways. And as a result, not only are we responsive to her employers, but we're much more responsive to other companies in the Pittsburgh area.
Great. Thanks, Justin. And um, I know you shared a little bit about some of the innovative practices and outcomes that have you benefited from in your relationship with Rachel, the partnership with the chamber. Marcy, do you want to talk at all about some of the outcomes and benefits that you have seen in your partnership with
Yeah.
Steve and Rob? Yeah.
As Justin said, often we adjust our curricula depending on the needs of our industry partners. So all of our industry partners serve on an advisory board. And in the advisory board meetings, we try to have at least one a year. We review the content of the curriculum and find out what needs to get updated, because in advanced manufacturing, the requirements for our graduates are constantly changing, and it's very difficult for a community college system, which is like a yacht. You try to turn a yacht, it takes a long time. We really need to be driven by our industry partners in order to just barely keep up with what's changing. And they too are scrambling. And for us for both partners to spend time to talk about it is, it's an investment on both of our parts. Then to have them come to the classroom, because we as teachers, we can talk, and sometimes what we say, the students are reluctant to believe, because we're in the classroom, we're not out there in the industry anymore. And so when our partners come to the classroom and back up what we're telling the students and emphasizing what we say is important, it really perks them up and just doubles down on the determination to really learn what we're trying to teach them. And it also encourages our students that, we can't teach them everything. We have them for a 2-year program. And with all of the content, which is constantly increasing, we encourage our students that we're giving you the means to keep learning once you graduate and figure stuff out when you get into the workplace. And, to make sure that they understand, they will also receive on-the-job training when they get to an employer. And so when the industry partner comes in and backs all of those concepts up and encourages the students, you learn what they're teaching you, and we'll take it from there if there are holes. And then to help us fill those holes as best we can while we're teaching. One thing that I really appreciate about NB Handy and Rob and Steve is that when they see an employee with potential, they encourage them to come over to the program and get some further education. And that takes commitment on their part, because they have to work schedules around class times, and they have to help the student to commit to come to class. And, when they see an employee with a lot of potential, they'll call me on the phone and say, okay, here he is. Here's what I would know about him. What do you think? What classes should they start with? How can we support these students? And it's a struggle for students these days. Most of them, our students are not kids. Our students are mostly working adults with families, and they have to work. A large part of them have to work while they're studying. And if they do not have their employer's support and backing, they'll never make it. They won't be able to make it, be successful in their studies, and also pay their rent and put food on the table. So I really appreciate employers like MB Handy who understand the whole package of what we're trying to do for them and with them, and what the students and the employees face in the struggles to get it all done.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you both. Now let's turn the camera to the industry partners and hear a little bit from them about their experience in this partnership. Let's start with you, Rachel. So what keeps you involved in education and the college, and Justin, and all the things that you're doing with the students? It sounds like you have so many things that you're offering and doing with them. What keeps you there?
There's really no choice in the matter, but really, as Justin said, we've been working with the community, the CCAC, and Justin and his team since 2018. and really allowing, we have this German dual apprenticeship program, and mechatronics is by far our largest program, our biggest program, just because those skill sets is almost like difficult, and I think everyone agrees that it's even difficult to give it a name, and we like to call it mechatronics. Germany calls it mechatronica, so it's um, you know, it's in line with at least the easy translation for us on the so that technology curve is giving. And so, in Germany, of course, they have a first, but when we looked here in our region to see who might align the best with that classroom element, CCAC was just an easy choice. They already have an established mechatronics program. The community college really has a unique opportunity. Even though I think Marcy said, it's like a yacht. Well, a four-year university is it's a barge at that point too. So we work closely with industry day in and day out. And our headquarters in Germany is they in Berlin, they invest a lot of bringing the industry to the table and defining this curriculum. And the dual portion is equally important to us. So you have, of course, the on-the-job training, but the classroom training.
Uh-oh, looks like we lost Rachel. No, we'll get her back on and get her. Oh, there she is. She's back. You're muted, Rachel.
Okay, sorry
There you go.
about that. I'm
That's
only
okay.
a couple minutes away from being parked, and I apologize to everyone. It's one of those days where talking about being busy.
That's okay.
But how we got engaged, really, the importance of that is that when we're working with industry, and we know that the technology, there's a lot of the core skill sets that typically stay, but we need to be quick on advancing and adapting. And Justin and his team have just been phenomenal and making those adjustments. And what's also nice is not just with the industry feedback. So you have our apprentices that are working day in and day out at these companies. They will also provide feedback to Justin and his team and us and say, okay, you know what, we're in this PLC class, but our PLCs is doing XYZ. And so there's a lot of communication. And I think that's the biggest key. And there's, allowing the apprentices to have the ability to give feedback, allowing the industry to have that constant cycle of evaluating, calibrating, and recalibrating, especially with CCAC. It has been a really great partnership because it's that importance of the classroom is yeah, it's really important for us. And our apprentices are typically coming from the high school. Sorry, we have family members leaving the car. So we have a lot of we have a pre-apprenticeship program. So these are usually high school graduates moving into our program. And so with the community college, allowing that classroom, but also the college degree elements, so that, you were talking about those pathways. And we always emphasize in multiple pathways with no dead ends. And so really allowing students when they're doing these classrooms that they're building upon different credentials, different skill sets. And so really setting them up, not just with the employer, but also, advancing in their careers, especially since they're young and they need to make sure that there's some advancement. But I think with the community college, the classroom, and the mechatronics, and it is especially that high skill, high demand job that's constantly changing. And so it's an exciting pathway. And that's, I think, why we have a huge response from our students, from our employers, and of course, with a solid partnership with CCAC, that's how it will continue to grow.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. You mentioned a big part of this is just constant communication, and it's not just communication between you and industry, but you've also got students at the table communicating with you as well. So that's a really somewhat unique, I think, to be able to take that student voice directly from them. Thank you. Rob and Steve, let's hear from you. What keeps you here and engaged, and what do you see as benefits from that partnership?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I think that just like any good cake you bake, all the ingredients are necessary and in the right portion. And I think that when you look at our connection with Marcy and their group, number one, the educators are living their best life. They're invested, they're leaders, they're creating mentorship. One of the things Steve and I noticed right off the bat when Marcy came bubbling in and dragged us down the rabbit hole, which we didn't even know existed, right? Is that they were very, very much committed. You could see it with the students. They found leaders in their educators. And therefore, Steve had mentioned almost immediately when we did our first thing that the commitment of the students in there to listen and to hear that had been conditioned through the classes and the stuff they were learning and the inspiration for opportunity for the future. So those students didn't just sit there and play on their phones. They didn't just sit there and they looked at Steve like he was, the second coming. And he just, Steve, amazing guy with technical stuff and with trainer, and he could see that right off the bat. And again, that was inspired by the educators. So right off the bat, we saw, hey, look, if these children, young men, young women, were as invested as we could see in that classroom environment, then we knew that there was an incredible value that we hadn't even, it was a win-win, right? But the fact that, that it has then also perpetuated. Marcy has stayed in touch, and I'm sure, and all the people that are on here, you as educators, with people looking for guidance, looking for leadership, looking for direction, looking for hope. They want a future where they can earn a living and have a life that they're proud of and that they can, enjoy. If you love what you do, you don't ever have to go to work again, right? And so that's what we found. And that was like a little gold mine in the middle of an unexpected territory. So, and the people that worked with Marcy, same thing, passionate. And you could see the kids were like, they didn't know who to pay attention to first, as we were going back and forth. But the key is they were paying attention. And then we received some of the students in. One of our guys here, Chris, came from one of the other programs there, but was so excited about what he had heard, and then started working, with our technical department, working on machinery, stuff like that. And he can't wait to go back in January to start the mechatronics program. So, you can't resonate with all students all the time like that. But when you see the majority of the students, and I would say all of the students in our, right, Steve, when you say in our experience, they were just soaking up like sponges what was available to them at the moment. And that's the key. If you can have what Marcy or any of these other educators to school, if you can bring the students' needs in to the awareness that we were brought in with our needs, all of a sudden there's this magical connection. It's like, wow, that's pretty cool. And then you're able to start to focus on how do we continue to streamline that in to our world. And so we are the real winners in this. I think the students are the real winners as well. Marcy has to work with us, which we torture the heck out of her, I'm sure. But, we are really happy to have the connection, not because, it's, fluff and stuff. No, it's a solid, production of interested young minds and endeavors and hopes and dreams that can be totally fulfilled by the industries. Rachel brought that whole concept in with her conversation that, there's just so much potential, and the educators are the key. And if they don't realize that, then they need to just, hear what Marcy has to say and what Justin, because the educators, that's what they love. So
Yeah.
their passion is just fueled by what they see happening for their students.
Right. So I'm hearing several things pop up in all of you and what you're saying, and really bringing the learners into this partnership. You're all doing it in different ways, right? You have industry that is connecting directly with those students, um, whether they're at the high school level or the college level. And that's huge, right? You're giving those learners experience not just to the education side, but also the industry side through your partnerships. I'm also hearing a very strong mutual respect between all of you, between the educators and the industry. And that is so important. You've got to really respect and admire each other in what you do and what you bring. So I love it, but I'm hearing both of those things in the conversation so far. So let's go back to our educators. What are Now we know that not everything is, peachy and cream, right? It's there are challenges in all of this as well. So what have you encountered in challenges and how have you overcome them? And I know there may be more, but we maybe highlight a couple of the top ones that you've been able to overcome and how you might
The,
help others do that as well. Justin, we'll start
I
with you
think
this time.
Yeah, started talking. So I think the biggest challenges we face are when we work with employer partners like the German American Chamber, they have a lot of good ideas that make sense. And my background, yeah, I came from industry and then went to the community college. There is so like this metaphor for like a boat or a bar or whatever, like it's so true. There is so much internal inertia that it is very difficult to be flexible and adaptive. And when we look at things like the future of work, we know community colleges have to do better. Organizations like the German American Chamber are pushing us to do better. Sometimes I think my full time job is teaching, but that's kind of funny because it's not when it comes to enacting change, right? Like I have to go internally and find the right people to talk to. And if Rachel wants to do something cool, sometimes I'm doing something like finding out where a check went that was supposed to get sent to her. And like that really isn't my job. But if I don't do it, it's really a barrier to doing these things and the collaborations because no one would want to work with us if we aren't able to respect what they're doing and really have a mutual collaboration. And I think like Rachel is one of our most successful partners, but you heard in the beginning when she was like, why do you work with the Community College of Allegheny County? This is a state monopoly. We're the only ones there. And so we have to want to do better if we want to bring more employers into the fold. I think the German Chamber knows what it's like working with us. They appreciate working with us, but I'm sure if you ask them, what are ways CCAC could improve? Rachel will open like a 3-page Google Doc she has ready to start listing options. So I think that's really tough when we all want to do it, but a state agency it's tough to move the right people in the right directions. I think that is our biggest challenge.
Thank you, Justin. I'm sure you're not alone in that. Marcy, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll start. Back in 2018, I was basically, well, in 17, I was hired by the community college to establish the mechatronics program. It was brand new. Nobody had ever heard of the word. It was a whole new thing. And to start something totally new in Virginia, at least it's a state-run organization. So there's just a ton of stuff to get it done. And I knew the first thing I had to do was start with industry because I'm not going to decide what to put in the curriculum for a new associate's degree program. I needed my service region industry partners to tell me that. And that's when I started inviting myself over and sticking my foot in doors and saying, please show me everything here. And I quickly found out that there was leftover resentment from years ago from a previous dean who was not engaged with employers, did not care about serving employers. And that bad reputation had stuck around town. And it took a lot of work to overcome that. But if you start from in a hole, it's worse. Hopefully you educators listening on this call will not start in a hole. But even if you do, you can climb out of it by relationship building. And relationship building and relationship maintenance are the most important things. And like any relationship, it takes work. You have to tend it. You have to pay attention to it. And so I have found the easiest way to stay engaged with my employers is through excuse me, student resumes. Students are always looking for positions or for improved positions. I have an internship included into the mechatronics program, so I always need to place somebody just for a minimum of 40 hours to get that internship experience. And I have an open line of communication with job postings from employers and then resumes back. So I keep a file of each ready to go. And when an employer contacts me and says, hey, I have a position opening up, I can answer that email in 5 minutes with 4 resumes, for instance. And the other way around, if a student comes to me and says, I'm ready to start working or I need something better, I can pull up my open requisitions file and show them everything that's available. I also post them. I print them out and post them on a bulletin board outside of my office. And then that gets a lot to maintain personally, you know, one-on-one. So we have our college puts on career days where the companies will come in and set up a table and the students can go over and talk to a ton of employers at one time. We also have a space on our website. Well, it's an adjunct to our website, but it's a career connections website. So employers can sign up so that they can constantly post their positions there and students can register to look through or be notified of certain types of positions that come through. So the whole hiring is the most important thing to employers, obviously, because that's their ultimate goal in partnering with us, is to find the correct employees that are well-trained and suited for their environment. One of the services that I offer my employers is kind of matchmaking. So I don't send a resume to an employer that I know the personality or the physical characteristics or whatever of that student are not going to match the job or even the workplace culture. Not every person is suited to work in every company. So by cutting down the employer's time to weed through resumes, you give them a valuable service. And then when you need something, they're ready to step up. And my industry employer partners are fantastic. If I find myself in need of a piece of equipment, help setting something up, coming to the classroom, whatever I need, they are always ready. Like today, you know, can you come to a webinar? Sure. And they jump right in. So it's a mutual relationship. It takes work on both parts, and you have to make sure that both partners are gaining value from the time spent tending that relationship.
Great. Yes. So Rob and Steve, you're talking to another company and they haven't engaged with education before. What would be your pitch for getting them connected, and how would you guide Marcy in connecting with an industry partner that she may not be already engaged with?
Well, I tell you, it's a symbiotic relationship. It just works on its own. I mean, there's no work at it. It's just, you know, Marcy will say, hey, I've got somebody that I think is good, or she'll say, hey, we got a new class in, or it starts with her communication to us, her investment in Steve and in what he's got going on and what we have going on in general. And it starts to self-proliferate from, you know, guys that maybe are already here working and want to do something new or want to grow their ideas, to people first coming in and sitting down for looking for a job. And we say, hey, like Marcy said, hey, here's a good place to start. Matter of fact, I think, you know, we had one guy that was just as a temp here, and we called Marcy, and he was very interested in talking with her to get started. It just blossoms on its own when there is that mutual expectation for, you know, performance on the things that you need. You know, like I can go to the store and buy bread. I know it's going to be there, hopefully, you know, but I know if I need to go to find somebody that might work, I could go to Marcy and say, hey, what do you got? What do you think?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Need drives need. And
Yeah.
it's
So you're
just a good
able to
thing.
share with your other industry partners that just exactly that, right? You can
Yeah,
depend on you have concrete examples of what that industry, what your partnership has brought, and that you can depend and rely on Marcy to really respond and respond to the needs that you have in
But
employer
we
as
also
well.
know that if we get Marcy in contact with another supplier or another vendor, that she's going to engage them just as well as she engaged with us.
Right.
So that just bonds the relationship. And now we have two people in partnership with her. So, and
Yeah.
we try to work with her with a new partner as well, just because it just makes a better team, as when we do link up together and, ask the questions of what we need or what they need.
Right. So it's trust. Trust is a big deal as
Yes.
well between your partnerships. Rachel, talk a little bit about being at the chamber. You have you're engaging with companies all the time. How do you talk about the value of getting connected to a community college as a whole?
Yes. So I mean, yes, we actually have quarterly meetings with our companies to discuss current curriculum, technology, challenges, opportunities. So there is that constant discussion with the companies. But we also challenge our employers to and Justin does a phenomenal job with this, is that, having Justin and the community college come to their companies, do a tour, really get to see their equipment. Um, and, we simply communicate that, the more education understands industry, the better education in the classroom can be. But it is a partnership. It's a collaboration. So you can sit on the industry side and complain about how, no one's addressing the skills and it's hard to hire someone with this necessary skills for my company. Everyone feels that they have a unique skill set, and a unique technology for every company. And while there are, I would say a 20% that it's the a uniqueness. There is a core skill sets that typically can be taught in a classroom, and then that 20%. But even in the 20%, if you were allowing CCAC, if you're allowing the community college to come into their companies to see their technology, it's a win-win for everyone. And they see the value, they see the advantage of doing that immediately, because you can complain all you want, but if you're not, you have to you have to take action. And I get our manufacturers, it's difficult. They're trying to make things and send it out, and that's, things happen. And, it's difficult to take that time, but it's such a priority because, that complaint is consistent amongst in the industry of not being able to hire technicians that have the right skill sets. And so there's just that, the companies that take that initiative. And that's how we've grown to over 50 companies, because what happens is those initial companies understood that just when we developed this curriculum, they were starting to see really change in the skill sets that the technicians gained at the end. And really, when they come into the journeyman, they are true mechatronics technicians and do quite well. Well, other companies start to look over and go, wait, you're doing really well over there. Why? What is happening? And so, I think sometimes we just really get so busy and make that excuse of being in your silos. But and then blame point the fingers and blame the other side. So industry blaming, education blaming industry, and not communicating. But we see it's such a huge value impact of technicians. And it's such a win-win between our college, our employers, and our students, because there's a communication. And I think the more we're able to give that spotlight, and we have really great now success stories that, it's really, it allows the companies to get that aha moment of, wow, this really taking that time will make a difference.
It pays off.
It pays
Yeah.
off, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. And
And
you have
so,
those
yeah,
you have those concrete examples to show them, um,
yes,
of
yeah,
those success stories. That's wonderful.
yes.
I want to open up any questions open up the questions to the field, to those on the call, to see if anyone has any questions. I do have more, but I want to give others an opportunity as well. Does anyone want to unmute themselves or type in the chat? Do you have any questions? I'll just pause
I
for a
do.
moment.
I do
Yes.
have a comment to make. Earlier, you were questioning what was the challenges that education based on. Excuse me. In early days, when I asked one of my former students who was employed now to come back to school and give a speech, the very first thing that he asked me is, please allow your students to have open book during the final exam or any exam. At that time was university policy that students cannot have open book or any materials during the exam. And I was the very first one. I'm talking about 1986. So I was very first one that caused the change of policy and faculty make their own decision having open book because they say, when I went to work, they provided a lot of book to me, all the handbooks, mechanical engineering handbook, every handbook, and I have to train myself how to use them. I wish you were training me how to use them.
Mhm.
So
So
there
you
are a lot of challenges that education are facing, but the most important thing is listen to industry partners and invite them as much as you can. Invite them for many reasons for social event even, because in a social event, the students can learn from industry partners and communicate. One of the most important thing is to hold the job. Finding the job is not that difficult. To hold the job is more difficult.
Thank you for
Jennifer, I
that
have a
comment
comment on
and
that.
question. Yes, Marcy, and then I'm going to go to Rick, who also has his hand raised for a question.
Okay. Yeah, I
question.
100% agree about the open book exams. It's my policy. And what I tell my students is, you don't have time on the factory floor or when you're trying to fix something, you don't have time to not be sure about the information that you're using. You also have to know where it is and you have to be able to get to it quickly. On the flip side, I'm trying to train my employers that every person that's on their phone may not be texting. They might be looking up a data sheet on a part or finding out a pre-written script that can fix the program quickly or, whatever. So it is definitely a two-way street of training on that front.
Mhm. Good point. Thank you. Rick, you had your hand raised.
Thank
Good to
you.
see you.
I'm wondering if the panelists and maybe especially the industry partners could comment on something you said up at the beginning about industry-based certifications, and if you're seeing any trends about that changing. I mean, what are the importance, especially in the areas of mechatronics that we're talking about here? And is it changing the importance of those for employment in this area as opposed to maybe skills-based certification, as opposed to maybe the academic certification? Do you see any trends in that space?
I can jump in on that a little bit. And I think Justin could, he's kind of our guru of knowing and understanding the various industry credentials. And I think too really is employer specific as well. We've seen, some of our mechatronics are embedded in polymer companies. And so we embed a polymer certification. We actually have in up in St. Mary's, there's a lot of powdered metals. And so die setting, what's the core of the mechatronics certification? And back to that uniqueness sometimes as well of what that company, in addition, in that specific industry might really need. And sometimes you have the mechatronics certification, those are really essential. And then, adding these different layers of certifications as per that industry sector. Some of our mechatronics technicians go into field service. And so we make sure that they have technical communication. They're able to communicate to customers. It's a little bit different than a maintenance technician that might not need to have that constant communication with the outside customers. So I think there's kind of it's a menu basically of certifications that really addresses these different types of career pathways. And I know the industry education loves to call them stackables, right? But we see that, and I just lost my other thought on that, and I apologize. But we do, I think I did want to say this too, because we work obviously with a lot of seniors in high school and parents and grandparents, and work talking and speaking to our students. Employers really also have to understand that while it's skill based for sure, and that's the importance for them, and that's critical, these identifiable skills that they need to have, that um, the student and the parents and the families need to be able to, it's more than just an on the job training skill set that is really important. And while the employer there, that's where there's a little bit sometimes of a disconnect between what the employers truly need is a specific list of skill sets and competencies and experience. But the student really needs to make sure that in their career pathway, that should something happen with the employer, or if they want to get an advancement, these specific college-based credentials and certifications are really important. So I think there again, it's this combination of working with our employers and understanding that these are their identified competencies that you require, but these are the credentials and industry credentials that we have to give these students because they need these for their future. And I think there's a little bit of a compromise between the two, and it's really important to value and understand the importance of both of them. So I'll stop here, and maybe I'm sure maybe Justin might have a few words
Yeah.
to come.
Yeah, just a couple things. So like Rachel's spot on. So like a couple stories, anecdotes that came from our relationship. One is we initially required all of our students to pass MSSC as part of the introductory mechatronics curriculum. And we tied MSSC to 6 credits, meaning if the students passed the MSSC exam, they get those 6 credits. But for the ones who didn't, it was a barrier on their way to graduate. And we always said, when we'd have traditional advisory board meetings, well, if they can't pass MSSC, it's basic stuff like safety. So it was important. We had 2 of Rachel's students who were not passing MSSC. And I remember we all had a big meeting, and Rachel and the employers said, how can you guys say this industry certification is important when these are employees, right? They're in the apprenticeship program, they're working on the job, they're safe, they do everything well, they're not good test takers. So how can you use this as something that holds them up in the curriculum? So that really focused like a shift in how we viewed industry certifications and caused us to take a lot of them out as critical path elements in our mechatronics program. Now our, college doesn't love that we can't say every graduate gets 8 industry cert or whatever, but like it's a better experience for students and employers to make it so they have the option to get those certs, but they're not required. The other thing that we've done is we've used some industry certifications as a unique tool to work with other community colleges. So Rachel and the German Chamber have some apprentices in Erie. And if you're not familiar with Pennsylvania geography, if those students would come study with us, they're in the car for like an hour or 2. It just doesn't make sense. So we've worked with other schools where we've used industry certifications as the unit we articulate so that we can have a school do workforce training, have their students earn an Allen Bradley industry certification or Rockwell, and then we'll articulate that in for credit for our PLC class. That's been great, and that's let us hit students in rural areas and keep that employer engagement, and has been really solid. So I don't know, Rick, I didn't answer your question great, but because of working with the chamber, we definitely view industry certifications differently, for sure.
Interesting. Thank you, Justin. I'd like to give Rob and Steve an opportunity to talk a little bit. Do you value any kind of industry credentials? Do you talk with that with Marcy and your partnership, or you want to share anything?
We've worked with Marcy. We don't really go off of the credentials so much, but basically she knows that what we're after or what our industry's already looking for. And then I think she just takes it and critiques it to her style. But it does with our relationship, she kind of knows like what we're looking for in general, and then we have the options to advance that person to, to a specific thing.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
that
I'm hearing
other-
that, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Steve. You
Oh,
had
no.
something to, Rob, you had something to
Oh,
add?
no, I was just gonna say that I think Rachel and Justin hit the nail on the head in how it supports a student's confidence and productive, nature that, hey, look, I've done this, I can show you this, I have value. And for an employer, it gives them a chance to say, okay, well, I can see you have this and this. Let me see how you do in this area. And so therefore, they're able to assess that employee in the first 90 days or whatever to see how well they can apply what they have stated as a learned, curriculum. And it just brings confidence to both the industry and to the student. So we do like it because it also allows us to say, wow, give them, kudos, you did a great job. And to Marcy in the school, hey, this guy really knows his stuff, or this girl knows her stuff. So I do think the credentials are important, how they're applied, and if it's open book or not, if it's, a real strict guideline, I don't think it's so much. I think it's how well the application for the student and the employer works. And
Yeah,
so there you go.
yeah, that's great. I hear, the credentials aren't of value unless it's something industry is responding to and informing you of, right? And so I like that, what you just said, Rob, about it. You suggest you talk with Marcy about what you feel the students need. It's up to her to make sure that they're learning that in whatever way is necessary. So I think that's a good lesson for all of us to hear. Let's listen, right? Listen and then figure out how we can adapt what we're listening into the classroom. We only have a minute or two left. So I think I would just like to have Marcy and Justin say a couple of closing words about the strategies. Marcy, I heard you talk about your advisory boards meeting every so often. You keep very, very, very close touch with your employers just through direct personal conversation. Justin, I know you have tapped into the BUILT model a little bit, the business and industry leadership team model, and following somewhat of a structure related to what that looks like. So do you want to just say a little bit about how each of those models works for you? Marcy, I think you have also had a lot of success with pulling in adjunct instructors because of the way that you have built your industry engagement. So final thought, just a quick minute for each of you.
Yeah, for sure. We don't use the official BUILT model just because I feel like that works better for colleges that work with really large companies. Most of my employers are small to medium manufacturers, and I had a strong engagement plan going before the BUILT model was created. But definitely stay in touch with your employers. And if you have a student that works for a particular company that you don't have a relationship with yet, use that as your foot in the door and go see what they do. And every time in class, when you're teaching a concept and you can use an example from one of your partners, yeah, we're learning about transformers today, and over at this particular company, they build them, and this is how they go together, and this is this part, and this is how it's done over at that company. Whatever you can tie in from real life experience right into the classroom, again, it gets the students thinking about what employers are out there and what are the opportunities that may be awaiting them when they graduate.
Perfect. Thanks,
Yeah.
Justin. Final
And
thought.
you heard Rachel say it, like I didn't coach her before this. She just came and always says all the right things. But we talk about industry certification. She's like, well, that really doesn't matter. I care about the knowledge, skills, and abilities that graduates have when they come work for my companies. That's exactly it. And that's why the BUILT model works so well. When Rachel comes to us and says, here's a suggestion for how you should change your curriculum, I think in 2018, we were all like, I don't know about this. But now we all whip out our pens and start taking notes and figure out the best way to implement it, because it's going to make our program stronger. So my final thought is just when you're working with companies, it is a lot of work, but it is worth it. So anything you can do to build in time for yourself to work with those companies, go visit, It pays dividends, but it's not easy to work into an existing schedule. So make the time because it pays off.
Perfect. Well said. I want to thank all of you, all of the panelists for participating today. I think we all learned a few things. It was great conversation. I do want to share a couple more closing thoughts, closing slides before we wrap up. Just real quickly, we have an opportunity for your employers to get more closely engaged and learn a little bit more about what skills are needed across the country. Anne Claire is leading this initiative and would love to be able to share more information with you. If you want to put your name in the chat, if you're interested in participating in this or recruiting a couple of employers to participate in it, please let us know in the chat and we'd be happy to follow up with you. In addition, we have a few more webinars coming up. This is again the second of a series. We check off webinar number 2, which is leveraging employer expertise. In 2 weeks, we will have the third of our series, which is creating and aligning seamless career pathways for all learners. And again, we'll have a dynamic panel of educators from the college level, at the high school level, and the adult ed level. So I think it's going to be a great conversation with them. And then we'll round out our webinars in January and February, just in time for our NCPN Connect 2025 conference. The end of February. Again, we hope you will all join us. We can continue these conversations about employer engagement, hear from more practitioners in those general sessions, breakout sessions. We'd love to see you there. Again, reach out if you have any questions. My contact is up on the slide. Again, thank you, everyone. It was wonderful. Hope to see you again in a couple of weeks.